रिकॉर्डिंग आपको NPTEL में मिलेगा, आपको YouTube पे मिलेगा, बहुत बढ़िया है, नोबेल प्राइज मिलने वाला है उन लोगों को, लेकिन यू जस्ट कॉन्सेंट्रेट ऑन द डिस्कशन. So you just obstruct this light source and you find that one shadow is formed on the screen. समझे कि नहीं? ठीक है? So step by step is there. Now you think that instead of this projector light source, so we are talking about the light source that is our infinite light source, that is sun. So if you are standing in some open ground and you are observing your shadow formed, so what about the size of the shadow? Now, before going to that sun rays, here you let us concentrate about this projector rays. Now, if we obstruct by standing in front of this projector, then what about the height of our shadow? Will it be smaller than us or equal or more than our height?
More than, sir.
More than our height, sir.
More than, because this
More than
light source is diverging light source. Now,
Yes,
what about
sir.
the sun rays are almost parallel to each other. In naked eye,
Almost
you cannot observe.
Same side.
It is parallel to each other. Now, it is just think about almost towards the sunset, just before the sunset, if you find your shadow developed on the ground, on a horizontal
Smaller.
ground, is smaller at just almost sunset.
No, sir, it will be larger, largest.
Larger.
Largest.
And it will
Largest,
be
sir.
smaller, very small when it is around 12 noon.
Perpendicular.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Just
But
above
of
our
course,
head.
there are so many things, the axis of Earth's inclination, etc., etc., the winter season, the summer season, the southerly movement, the northerly movement, there are so many things. But you just think about the shadow form. Now, during evening means just before sunset, you are telling that shadow formed on the horizontal ground is quite long compared with your height. But if you think that this is one vertical wall and you are standing in front of that vertical wall of your building just before sunset, then what about the shadow formed on the wall behind you? And what about the height of that shadow?
Sir,
sun rays are coming parallel to each other, and just before sunset it is almost horizontal, and you are standing in front of your house wall, the external wall. This is a vertical wall, and you are standing in front of the vertical wall, just facing the sun, at the time of sunset, just before sunset. Then if you observe the height of your shadow, then what about this height? Will it be smaller? Will it be bigger or equal?
Equal.
Because just during sunset, rays are coming horizontal, parallel to each other and perpendicular to this plane on which the shadow is formed. But if we think about this horizontal floor or horizontal, that ground on which you are standing vertically, and you are talking about that shadow formed by the setting sun rays, okay, it will be quite long shadow formed during that almost sunset time. So this is very vital issue, this formation of shadow. Now, before that, you just think about another situation. Here is a small light source hanging from the ceiling. Just under this light source, a small sphere vertically below the light source, it is there. And if we observe the shadow on the floor, almost the same size of the sphere, there is a shadow circle. And what about this line? It is perpendicular to the floor. So think about these two. That's all. Now you just tell me, do you have any experience about वो जो खुला मैदान में सिनेमा दिखाते थे ना पहले, बहुत पुराने जमाने में, शायद आपने देखा है।
Theater.
yes, sir.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
तो
Yes, sir.
There also some projector is used, and in front of that light source some obstruction is made by providing a moving translucent screen of series of picture lighting, and that movement gives us that movie. Okay. Now whether sound is there or not, that is different issue, but that shadow is formed here. So that formation of shadow, it is on the screen, and if you see from this side, from the behind the screen, what you will find that Tendulkar is batting as lefty.
Sir, mirror image basically, mirror type.
Almost. Now that plane on which this projector is forming that shadow or this obstruction is projected here, that is one issue. Second thing, these light rays, we need to consider them as like sun rays. Each of them are parallel to each other, and these light rays are falling perpendicularly to that plane on which, or to the screen on which that shadow to be formed. So for that case, we can think that almost that setting sun is forming that shadow on a vertical wall. So if any object is placed in between that setting sun and this vertical wall of your building, then you will get that shadow size as equal to the object size. So that boundary of the object and boundary of the shadow, they will be identical. So very important information that you must store in your database as common sense. Okay. So you are seeing from front, you are seeing from above or top. And one thing, suppose you just think about your normally for identity card or your passport, normally you are asked to paste one passport size photograph. Now anyway, some different issue. What is the standard size of this passport size photograph? Please forgive me for
4.5 into 3.5
no unit, all dimensions in millimeter.
Centimeter.
Centimeter. Now, suppose you have that passport size photograph pasted on the identity card. Now, from that photograph, is it possible for you to identify whether your nose is sharp or your nose is blunt?
No, sir, it is difficult.
It is
No,
difficult.
sir, 2D.
It is very difficult.
So what is the easy way to find or have some idea about the shape of your nose, whether it is sharp or blunt?
In 3D.
Sir, we need a
Zoom the
bigger
image.
Sideways
image.
view.
Zoom
Sideways
the
view.
image.
Sir, we need to change the angle of camera.
You can take
You
photos.
need to change the angle of camera. If you are seeing perpendicularly, that is vertically, then you can find the portion of the nose just projected out of your face plane. And another thing is that if you see from left or right, just side perpendicular to this view, you'll find the shape of your nose, whether it is sharp or whether it is blunt. Okay, so these three important things just about formation of shadow. Okay, next thing, it is something like this. Here is one light source where each and every rays are parallel to each other, falling perpendicular to a plane of projection or a screen. Then some shadow is formed here. Then what about the shape of the shadow? It is exactly of this shape, that inverted T of this front face, and the size of this shadow will be exactly the size of this front face of this object. As if you are the observer and your eye is so big that it is giving those lines of views parallel to each other, and you are getting that image here. Or think about some big light source like sun, and all light rays are passing or coming parallel to each other, and the shadow formed here exactly of the size and shape of this front face. Okay. Now some information is there. It is called VP. Now those who are little aware of this thing already, they can tell me the name. Is there anybody who can tell me this name? VP.
Vertical plane.
Vertical plane. In short, VP. Now the same object we see from above, as
Line of horizontal projection.
if the sun is directly above our head at 12 noon, and it is giving us that shadow of the same size and shape of this available topmost face here, here, and here. So these three faces are giving primarily the shape and size of this shadow. And if you draw perpendiculars from each and every such prominent location, either the corner or these vertical lines, you will get these boundary corners or these boundary edges, etc. And this is the HP or the horizontal plane. Okay. Similarly, we can think about the shadow formed when the sun is here almost at the time of sunset, and just on that vertical wall of a building that shadow is formed. Here you will find rectangles. This is the one component of that rectangle, and this is the another. And for this face, as you know that this is horizontal, and a horizontal line will be coming here. And this vertical face in shadow, it will come like a vertical, a single line there. Okay. Now these two are corresponding to looking from this side horizontally, looking from this direction vertically, or from top or from above. And here we think about that situation where we are talking about that somebody was there behind the screen and seeing that according to you it was like a mirror image. So you are working with right hand in the front side, and it will show that you are working with left hand. Okay. And these planes, the horizontal plane and vertical plane, very important thing you must remember. These planes are to be considered as transparent planes and infinite, mutually perpendicular to each other. Naturally, horizontal and vertical planes are mutually perpendicular to each other. But one important thing, horizontal plane is unique, but vertical plane may be different. This front face, this is a vertical plane. This lateral face, this is also a vertical plane. Okay. So vertical plane may be different. Horizontal plane is unique. Now this vertical plane on which, with reference to this direction, which is called the front, this shadow and corresponding this plane is called VP. All vertical planes are not VP. We need to remember that. Any plane perpendicular to horizontal plane will be a vertical. But any plane perpendicular to vertical plane will not be horizontal, because any line, if you consider a line inclined in this way, as if it is a thin cardboard, or maybe a thick strong cardboard there, and it is just tilted in this way, that is also perpendicular to this vertical plane, but not horizontal. So here what we do, we consider two small portion of the infinite horizontal plane and the infinite vertical plane, mutually perpendicular to each other. This is the line of intersection. Formally, we call it a line XY, or sometimes it is called ground line or GL. Okay. So with reference to this ground line XY, with reference to this vertical plane VP, and with reference to this horizontal plane HP, we are subdividing this space in 4 parts, as you have done in your trigonometry, that 2 axes, x-axis and y-axis are there, not this line. This horizontal line is x-axis, this vertical line is y-axis, this is the origin O, and this portion is the first quadrant, this is the second quadrant, this is the third quadrant, this is the fourth quadrant. Here also, the space between these two planes in this location, in this zone, it is the first quadrant or dihedral angle. Here this side is the second quadrant. Here it is third quadrant and it is fourth quadrant. And specifically to remember this thing, we can take the help of this diagram, that is vertical plane. With reference to this vertical plane, we consider that we are located here to see the object. Now this is the front side with respect to vertical plane. This is the portion behind the vertical plane. This part is above horizontal plane and this part is below horizontal plane. Now to suppose one object is placed here in this first quadrant, then how we can define the position of that object? That the object is placed above horizontal plane and in front of vertical plane. Similarly, when one object is there placed in second quadrant, then how you can describe it?
Above the horizontal plane and behind the vertical plane.
Third angle, third quadrant?
Below the horizontal plane and behind the vertical plane.
And for this fourth part?
Below the horizontal plane and in front of the vertical plane.
Exactly. So thank you for participating.
Sir, 1 second. 1 second. Explain, sir.
This is the explanation. First quadrant, object is in front of vertical plane and above horizontal plane. Okay. In front of horizontal plane and in front of vertical plane, above horizontal plane. Here. For second quadrant, behind vertical plane, above horizontal plane. For third quadrant, behind vertical plane and below horizontal plane. For fourth quadrant, in front of vertical plane, below horizontal plane. Is it okay?
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Now, next thing. As we are talking about that how to guess that whether my nose is blunt or sharp, for that we need to see from side and another plane which is perpendicular to both these reference plane, horizontal and vertical, as if as you have done in your school days solid geometry. Okay, those three axes, x-axis, y-axis, z-axis like thing. So here are three mutually perpendicular plane. This is horizontal plane, this is vertical plane. This is called profile plane, which is also another vertical plane, but not this reference vertical plane, which is named as VP. Okay, so HPVP are the formal horizontal vertical plane combination. And this is for some special requirement. This is the profile plane for which you have to see the object or make the projection on this profile plane. Now here we have one more diagram. In first quadrant, in front of vertical plane and above horizontal plane, we are considering a point capital A. Now from this location capital A, we drop three perpendiculars. One is on this plane, other is on this plane, this floor, and the third one on this profile plane. Okay, so all these 3 foot of the perpendiculars give us as if these 3 are shadows formed by placing that infinite light source at different location. Now these 3 locations are, one is seeing from front, other seeing from above or seeing from top, and the third one, as we discussed earlier, regarding my nose, whether it is blunt or sharp, looking from this direction. So see from front, we get this one. See from above, we get this one. And see from left, we get this one. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
just to clear this extra. Now you concentrate on this first quadrant, 3 mutually perpendicular planes, horizontal plane, vertical plane, and this profile plane. And these 3 names, capital A is the actual object, maybe it is a particle. So 3 shadows formed on 3 planes mutually perpendicular to each other and having the light source providing that direct rays perpendicular to those planes of projection, those shadows are called, this one lowercase a, capital A is the actual object or the particle, lowercase a is the shadow formed on the horizontal plane, lowercase a with 1 prime, a prime, or sometime other name also we can use a dash, but normally I use a prime. So a prime is corresponding to that formation of the shadow on the vertical plane, and a with such double prime is here shadow on the profile plane. Okay. Now once these shadows are formed, then we use their names in this way. Lowercase a corresponding to the shadow formed for this particle, capital A, this is view from above. This one, view from front, this is the direction for front. Observer is here in first quadrant. And seeing from this direction and forming that shadow here, it is the view from left. Now, along with this, there are some more information. What is that? This is DH, DV. Now, these are standing for the distances, and D subscript capital H means distance of the object from horizontal plane. Either it will be mentioned as the distance of the point from the horizontal plane, or it will be given that height of the point capital A is this much. Suppose this is 30 millimeter, DH is 30 millimeter. So height of the particle or object A, capital A, is 30 millimeter. But that height normally you cannot use always, because if there is any position below the horizontal plane, so you cannot say that negative height or something like that. Now, similarly, for this location also, this distance also, there is no such special name. You need to call it by its full name, that is dV, that is the distance from the vertical plane. Okay. And this profile plane, the shadow on the profile plane, there you will find the height of this end view or view from front, A double prime, from this separate line of intersection between the PP and HP, there you will find this same distance DH will be projected here also. That is height of the object from the horizontal plane, that will be same as height of this view from front A prime from this ground line XY or the line mutually perpendicular to each other for these planes VP and HP. And here this is the height dh, or the distance of the point, real point from the horizontal plane. Here is the distance of the view from left from this another ground line, which is the line of intersection between these two mutually perpendicular planes, HP and PP. Now, what about the distance of this shadow from this vertical line, which is the line of intersection between VP and PP? This is also dV, because here we are forming a cube-like thing. Okay, so rectangular box-like thing. So this distance is also dV. This distance is also dV. And this distance is arbitrary. That means from this location A, where this profile plane is provided, that is not given here. So this distance according to our convenience. But whatever distance we consider, this distance will be equal to this one as well as this one also. Next thing, this is the distance from the vertical plane for the real point A. This is the distance of the point which is named as V from above from this line XY. Similarly, this point also. So these things are like ABCD of this subject. Suppose if we write this thing, what is the name of this figure?
Sir, A.
A. Now, if we call that this is A, this is B, this is C, etc., will we be happy?
Sir, it sounds peculiar.
Why peculiar?
Because we are used to call them some by some other name.
Yes, exactly. Because we are used to, we are compelled to. पहले बचपन में मम्मी से बहुत धुलाई पिटाई हुआ था, बेटा तुमको जो दिया गया है वही रट्टा मार के प्रैक्टिस करो और ए लिखो, ए, उसके बाद अगेन ए, फोर्थ टाइम ए, फिफ्थ टाइम ए. So ऐसे करके we get some confidence on how to hold the pen or pencil, how to make these lines smoothly, confidently, and gradually we learn different names of these different pictures. So shuru mein these are all picture like thing, but after some days, within 3-4 months of starting this thing, we find some new information. Now, what about this thing?
Words formed by joining alphabets. Meaningful words formed.
Meaningful words formed by.
So meaning किसने दिया बेटा?
So by rules, sir, dictionary.
Given by us, sir.
Given by us only. Given by our ancestors. Our forefathers, generation before generation, I don't know when these symbols were generated. After that, so many thousand years of their purification, refinement, so many things. But for our requirement, we develop this thing. In different country, different such styles are there, different style of writing, different pattern of alphabets, different pattern of making the sentences, etc. Those are languages. And rigid rule has been set, which is called the grammar. The rigid rule, sometimes we violate or modify it according to the requirement of the current usage, but otherwise it is almost rigid. Okay. Now, just a minute, I'll erase these unnecessary parts. Here also, this subject engineering drawing, it is called language of engineers. And this name is not given by me. My teachers, their teachers, even before them also, since long it is being called the drawing is the language of engineers. Now the modern name is also graphics. So some letters, some words, some meaningful connection of words, framing of sentences, as you have seen in any language in its grammar. Here also for this subject, those grammars have been set. And one such grammar is name of these views. The view from front, sometimes it is called, now somebody was telling that name. कुछ तो बोल, कुछ देर पहले तो बताया था आपने.
First angle projection, third angle.
नहीं बेटा,
नहीं है sir.
आगे लगता है नाम नहीं सुना.
हाँ, elevation.
Elevation. One more name is there.
Depression, angle of depression.
Declination.
ये बेटा मेरा डिप्रेशन आ जाएगा, ऐसा मत बोल.
No sir, sorry sir to disappoint you. Elevation.
Front view, side
The
view.
name is front view or view from front. Next, this one, the view from above.
Top view.
Thank you. One more famous name.
Depth.
नहीं.
Projection.
नहीं, you use this word for so many things, particularly for building.
Side view. Side view. Longitudinal view.
Plan. Okay. And you have seen so many building plans for advertisement, etc., etc. And this view from left, sometimes it is called left side view.
Left side.
Okay. Now, these things are like alphabet, the words, meaningful words, then meaningful connection between these words, that framing the sentences, etc. But all these things, what you are seeing, everything are the alphabets. Okay. Now, this is the primary information about projection. Object is assumed to be placed in the first quadrant. You make the projection by dropping perpendicular lines on those planes of projection HP, VP and PP. These are the foot of the perpendiculars, as if these are the formed shadows. Small a prime and small a double prime for the corresponding object, capital A. And names are plan, elevation, side view, or view from above, view from front, and view from left, or view from side, etc. Then, as this object is placed above horizontal plane and in front of vertical plane, that is in first quadrant. So formally, now कुछ देर पहले one of your friends just talking about first angle projection. Yes, beta, you are correct. So this is the first angle projection. Now, we can place the object in other quadrants also, and similarly, we can form shadow on horizontal plane, vertical plane, and the profile plane. Naturally, those will be their plan elevation and side view. For second angle projection, for third angle projection, for fourth angle projection, etc. But normally we will concentrate on first angle projection. That is, the viewer is here, object is placed in front of vertical plane and above horizontal plane, and you have to get the side view either looking from left or looking from right. If you see from right, the profile plane will be placed on this side. Okay. Now to start with, we concentrate on this profile plane on this side so that we can go for the view from left. Next thing, now for industrial purpose or academic purpose, if we want to represent any object, this is the primary helping tool to find its projection, plan, elevation, and view. Now, in the suppose some building complex is somewhere giving its advertisement. So, what type of advertisement you will find normally in newspapers? Either the landscape or the building height shown in the elevations. Okay, so how the building look like, front, side, rear, etc. And what about the landscape? These are the location of the buildings. This is the location of the some lake-like thing is there. This is the gymnasium. All such plans are given, floor plans or that type of total complex plan. Now there is another rigid grammatical guideline for this language. What is that? That is, if this is the HPVP, then one object is placed here in the first quadrant. As if this is the point A, its view from top will be lowercase a, its view from front will be lowercase a with a prime. Now you have to present this drawing on a flat surface, a 2D paper. But way we are seeing it, it is something like a model. Now can you hear me or I have been muted?
Yes, sir,
Hello?
we can hear you.
Audible.
We can hear you, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Because
Audible, sir.
When-
Yes, sir. Hallelujah.
because when I am working on this screen, naturally I cannot see that MS Team page there, whether microphone is on or off. Anyway, so this is something like 3D presentation, as if two cardboards are there mutually perpendicular. One particle is there, A. We start from the object. It is the zero-dimensional object, such kind of thing. Now, if we want to present this thing, naturally you have to make some 3D model, but it is not possible. So what we do, we simply do this thing. With reference to this line, normally it is called ground line or XY line. With reference to this line, we rotate this horizontal plane through 90 degree. Okay. Now, if we rotate this horizontal plane through 90 degree in this direction, then what happens? it comes to this location. So this line is here, this line is here, and this line is here. Okay. Now what about this shadow A? This also rotates through 90° and it comes here. So now the formal presentation is in this way. This is the line XY. One vertical, very thin line will be there. Now at this much distance, we identify a point here, and at this much distance in this direction, we mark a point here. This is the formality. You cannot argue with this, as we cannot argue that this is A, this is B, this is C. As nobody accepts this thing, only you yourself can make some dictionary for pronunciation, this like A, this like B, and this like C. So similarly here also, this is the set grammar that we open this first quadrant, rotating the horizontal plane through 90° about this line of intersection between HP and VP. Then the plane comes vertical, and this line, which was initially horizontal, now it is vertical, and along this line. Okay. Now this point is this point A prime, and here it is A. Now what about the distances? Distances are, this is distance from horizontal plane D subscript H, and distance from vertical plane D subscript B for the real object capital A. And geometrically you will find, as it is perpendicular, these two planes are perpendicular, the projection lines are also perpendicular, or the direction of sight, those are also perpendicular to the planes on which the shadows are formed. So here also you'll find this distance is dV, as well as the distance transferred here, that is also dV. And this is distance from the horizontal plane, or height of the point capital A from the horizontal plane. So this is distance from the horizontal plane. And if you put that formal dimension, what about the location? It is identified with their dimensions. This is the distance from the horizontal plane, or height of the object A, and this is distance from the vertical plane. Normally this side is VP side, and lower side with reference to this line XY is called HP side. Okay, and distance in HP side will be distance from the other side, that is the VP. And distance from the horizontal plane DH is the distance of this point A prime from the other side, that is HP side, with reference to this common line between the HP and VP. There is the line of intersection between these two mutually perpendicular planes, XY line or ground line. Clear? Similarly, if we consider about the other plane, that is the profile plane, for that case, you have to rotate this plane through 90 degree to open this space so that it comes here. Okay, so now the whole three-dimensional presentation for this point capital A, one on the horizontal plane, other on the vertical plane, and the third one on the profile plane. So for every small object, we are not going to make such cardboard 3D model preparation. So this is the set grammar, that the way by which we represent these views or projection or formation of these shadows on three different mutually perpendicular planes, that you open the space so that the 3D is now represented in the form of 2D. Okay. So just to summarize.
Sir, can you please again explain the projection of PP plane?
Okay, let me redraw it, or just I will consider one more diagram. Extend this line and extend this line. So it becomes that this plane has been rotated through 90 degree. Now this horizontal plane becomes vertical and it is matching with the upper portion of this vertical plane with reference to XY. Now similar thing we can do, just if we just hold a minute. So this point and this point representing the end points of this vertical line, you are as if rotating this plane PP about this suppose hinge line, and here it is rotate it about this hinge line through 90 degree, and here also through 90 degree. Now is it a little bit more clear?
Yes, sir, but I asked for the projection of that point in 2D, what you drawn for the PP plane.
Originally it was here. Just hold a minute, I'll change the color so that Is it okay now? The point was capital A, the object in first quadrant. Its projection on the vertical plane is A prime. Projection on the floor, that is the horizontal plane, it is small a. Now when we rotate this plane, full HP, this point small a also comes down in this way. And finally it will be located on this line, because all these lines are mutually perpendicular to each other, corresponding locations. HP, VP perpendicular to each other, the views or the lines of those lights rays, those are all parallel to each other and perpendicular to the plane on which the shadow is formed. So now this point comes here. This is A now. When you open the space. Is it okay? Now this distance from the horizontal plane and distance from the vertical plane are indicated by this distance from the horizontal plane, distance from the vertical plane, and for this rectangle, this is the distance from the horizontal plane, this is the distance from the vertical plane. So all these angles are 90 degrees. They are mutually perpendicular to each other. And similarly, when we are talking about this point at center, this distance dv as radius, and it is coming here, so naturally this distance will also be dv. So that's why with reference to this line xy, we drawn this very thin line. So if it is that xy line, then this is corresponding to the view from front. This is view from top, and this distance will be dh. This distance will be dv. Now, was it the answer for your question?
Answer for that PP plane.
For PP plane, we need to bring this line. That line, if we are placing perpendicular to this, then at the same height,
सारा लाइन क्लास चला मनवाड़ी कहीं मम्मी से कहीं पापा से
now height of this projection on the PP, that is the left view, will be the height of the point from the horizontal plane. It is dh. Okay. And what about the distance of that point from the profile plane? This distance is again distance from the vertical plane. And when you rotate it to match with this vertical plane, just side by side, this distance is dv. And how geometrically we are working with that? We draw a horizontal line here, get this point, naturally this will also be dv from this rectangle. Then you use that distance dv as radius of this circle, considering this point as center. Draw this quarter circle. You come here, Naturally, this distance will be dv, and this distance is dv if you draw a vertical line from this point. So first step, second step, third step, this is fourth step. Finally, this is a double prime. And you do not need to calculate anything. You should not bother your calculator. Everything comes from that geometry, its construction, the lines, its inclinations, its movement, etc. But this part is very important, that opening up this space from its 3D orientation to 2D orientation in the form of Is it clear now?
Yes, sir. Sir, but why it is a left side view? The profile plane is right to the vertical plane. So why we call it left side view?
मैंने कब मना किया?
No,
At the beginning, I told you that profile plane may be for view from left or view from right, depending on the requirement. Okay, so you first remember the grammar, the rigid grammar of this subject for this language, that you need to open that space from its 3D presentation to its 2D representation. Okay, and this is that three mutually perpendicular planes are given this placement in 2D, so that you can make some 2D presentation for any object with all its information, important information, its geometry, etc., etc. Because making 3D model is almost impossible thing. Now, any question regarding this discussion?
Sir, this circular rotation which you did in the second step, sir, that couldn't understand why it like that.
This circular rotation for this, sorry, this one. Geometrically, what we need, that this location for this view from left. Now, location for this view from left is such that it is at a distance of dv from vertical plane and dh from horizontal plane. Now, this is already done. Through this point, if you draw a horizontal line, so every point is at a distance of dh, etc. So this side view must be located on this line, and it will be at a distance of dv from this line, that is from this line, whether it is measured here or it is measured here. Okay, so it will be moving in that way only, dv, distance from the vertical plane. So distance from the vertical plane in its real position and distance from the vertical plane in its reoriented position in the form of 2D, they will be same. And we are getting this thing geometrically, that is using your drawing instruments or two set squares, draw a line parallel to this XY line, reach up to this location, taking this point as center. When we are drawing this circular arc, then everywhere it is dv. And finally, when it reaches here, this is also dv, distance from the vertical plane. And once you identify this location by transferring this dv here, by transferring this dv here, and drawing a vertical line, then what about this location? It is satisfying both the condition that is at a distance of dh from the horizontal plane, at a distance from dv from the vertical plane. That's all.
Sir, the distance of the object from the profile plane is still arbitrary.
Arbitrary. It is arbitrary. Okay, but your drawing paper, it is not infinite space. So if you consider this as arbitrary, means XY line is too long, A prime and A are located here, and this profile axis is here, and we do in this way. Naturally, this space is complete unutilized or wastage. So logically it should be close to it, but there must be some suitable distance to be maintained here, and naturally we do the thing in this way. Draw a horizontal line up to certain distance, draw this horizontal line, identify this, take this point as center, using this distance as radius, draw this quarter circular arc, reach to this point, at this point draw a vertical line, get this point of intersection, it will be A double prime. तो कहने में जितना टाइम लग रहा है ना, when you work with this thing with the drawing instruments on paper, it's just चुटकी में. But you need to remember this grammar. This rigid grammar is the background of this subject. And it is a very long way. First, we start from the projection of points line surfaces, then projection of simple solids, then section of solids with perpendicular planes. And the subject is too vast. In our first semester course, we have up to that, and you will get some introduction about development of surfaces, intersection of surfaces, then auxiliary projection, then isometric projection. All these very information summary you will get, so that afterwards, if you feel some interest for some self-study or going through some self-learning material available through our SWAYAM, you know that SWAYAM, SWAYAM?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
For such self-learning, there are so many information is there, so you can go through. But my responsibility is that to make you ready and to reach up to the beginning of that avenue, so that now you can explore. Okay, so for that, this interaction, so many times you ask for that, I will try to make you satisfied. But thing is that time is not unlimited. Weekly one class, and that too so many such thing. So anyway, you just have some study from any book, from YouTube, whatever maybe. You start with projection, particularly first angle projection. Okay. Now one thing. You can make one cardboard model with HP, VP and PP mutually perpendicular to each other. Now you open them and place them on a flat surface, as if you have rotated the HP about the line XY and the PP about this line of intersection between VP and PP. Okay. And you maintain those distances of the real point capital A from the vertical plane, the horizontal plane, and not as such for PP, but if it is mentioned a rigid distance for that particular object capital A from the profile plane PP, then definitely you need to consider it. Otherwise not. Any more question?
Sir, there are only 4 angles of projection or more.
you can subdivide the infinite space in 4 parts only with the primary condition that you are making the projection on vertical plane and horizontal plane primarily. So that primary subdivision of the space in 4 quadrants, first, second, third and fourth. Okay, but only practically applicable are first angle
First and third.
Why, that we'll discuss later. But first angle projection and third angle projection, different countries, they follow these two different separately. In our country, we started with first angle projection. Now, for some period, we shifted to third angle. Now we have gone back to first angle projection again, but we are learning always about third angle projection also, because there are so many countries, particularly United States, where you will find the third angle projection. And if you are not conversant with both of these systems, naturally, if you for higher study or for some job abroad, if you go to United States and you are not conversant with the third angle projection, you will be really in issue. So along with the first angle projection, you should learn the third angle also. Now, by any chance, have I sent you the problem sheet of this third for this plate number 3?
Not yet. No, sir.
Not yet. So
No, sir.
No, sir.
I'll send it by today or tomorrow, and there will find most likely 23 problems are there, and the last 4 or 5 problems, those are on third angle projection, so that practice you can make for the third angle projection. Now, whatever books available in the market, they discuss mainly, they concentrate mainly on first angle projection, and some example on third angle are also given, so that you can have those things in your mind, so for your self study, and naturally you can develop all these things independently. But otherwise it is first angle, and different countries, you can give a Google search, different countries, they follow first angle and third angle either separately or in a combination. Now suppose we have some big work plan. It may be an industry, it may be some housing complex, etc. But the designer or the consultant is from United States. They send you the drawing, design, detailing, etc. for third angle projection. And you, the Indian engineer, you know only the first angle. So initially you will really fumble to convert that thing to first angle, or directly understand about the information and go for the construction, etc. So anyway, primary logic is same, but that logic, how it is developed, I will discuss now. Here. Now let me erase this extra information. Now can you remember those your school days of trigonometry?
Yes, sir.
There you subdivided the space in 4 parts. Space means the plane of your paper, and here the space means the real 3D space. Now if we subdivide this space in 4 parts, as if you are looking from this direction, so you get this horizontal plane as a horizontal line, and this vertical plane as a vertical line, intersecting each other at 90 degrees. So this is the first quadrant, this is second quadrant, this is third, and this is fourth. Now when there is some object is there, capital A, in the first quadrant, then corresponding to its shadow on vertical plane and horizontal plane are like this. Okay. Now next step is open this space from its 90-degree orientation to 180-degree orientation. So naturally this point A comes here. So that is the primary approach, that this is the elevation of the viewpoint from above XY, and this is the plane or view from top to the ground line XY. Next thing, the opening, when you are opening this space by rotating this horizontal plane through 90-degree, then what about the other side? That will also travel through 90-degree. Now when this plane here on this side, they come
এই জায়গাটা আরেকবার বলে দিন, বুঝতে পারলাম না এই জায়গাটা।
কোন জায়গাটা বাবা?
কি রোটেট করতে হবে কোন দিকটা বুঝতে পারলাম না।
You take two cardboard flat pieces, you form this intersection like model, two mutually perpendicular planes, one is horizontal, other vertical, they are cutting in this way. Okay. Now if we see from this direction, if you take one horizontal cardboard just in front of your eyes, then what you get there? You get a horizontal line. And if you see from this direction, then what about this vertical plane? This vertical plane is coming as this line. When you are seeing along this direction. Okay.
Yes.
The location of this point capital A in the first quadrant, this is the projection on the vertical plane, this is the projection on the horizontal plane, and when we are opening this thing and it is coming below this position, the whole thing comes in this form. Instead of this 3D thing, we are taking in the form of a single straight line. The whole vertical plane has been represented in this form. You are seeing along this direction. The whole horizontal plane has been represented by this horizontal line. So once you have all these things in your hand, that in its 3D model or in this simplified form of two mutually perpendicular straight lines, you are getting the same thing. Distance from the vertical plane, this is the distance from the vertical plane, distance from the horizontal plane, distance from the horizontal plane in elevation and in plane. The same thing happens when we consider the other quadrants. Now let us go back to the other quadrant discussion. But primarily, the rigid rule is that when we are opening this first angle, this first quadrant, through this 90-degree movement, naturally that same movement to be applied for this plane, for this side of the plane also. So it is coming down and it is moving up. Okay, that you have to maintain. Next thing, just to hold a minute, I'll draw a fresh diagram. This is the line. This is that line Suppose this is the line 1 1. So it is 1 1, and this line 2 2 is here, and line 2 2 represents the whole vertical plane. Line 1 1 represents the whole horizontal plane when you are seeing from this direction. Okay. Now, if there is any point on second quadrant, it is placed in the second quadrant. Suppose this point is capital B. Now project it horizontally. It means you see from front, and we are getting as if a shadow here. So what about the name of this point? Lowercase with a prime. Here, when you see from top, this is the lowercase b. Now, when we rotate this line through 90 degree, what about this point B? The point B travels here. So the view from front and view from top, both of them are on the same side, and it may so happen if it is a real object of some definite shape and size, naturally these two separate figures will overlap one over the other, and giving a clumsy figure, you cannot differentiate or distinguish between the view from top and view from front. For a single point, it may not be so troublesome. They may be located distinctly, B and B prime. Similar thing happens when it is at fourth quadrant. At fourth quadrant, suppose we have a point D. Its projection on the vertical plane, it is D prime. Projection on the horizontal plane, it is small d, but when you rotate it, it comes here. So for that 2D presentation, both the views or both the shadows, D and D prime, that is view from top and view from front, they are coming on the same side with reference to this line XY. And naturally, the final figure will be clumsy due to overlapping of two different diagrams corresponding to two views from front and from top. So that's why the second angle and third angles are not preferred. But if it is for third angle, the second and fourth are not preferred. But if it is for third angle, now let me clear some information. This is the line 1 1 representing the horizontal plane. This is the line 2 2 representing the vertical plane. Suppose we have a point here in the third quadrant. Suppose it is C. Now when we make its projections or shadows on two different planes, this is projected on the vertical plane. What will be the name of that? C prime. This is the projection on the horizontal plane. This is lowercase c. Now when we open this space through 90 degree, so naturally it will travel up point C. Now this point is C. So these two different views, view from front and view from top, are not on same side of this reference line. But difference is that for first angle, this is elevation This is plan. For third angle, this is plan. This is elevation. But for second and fourth quadrant, they will be on the same side. That is not preferred. Here we had that point C, and here we had point A in first quadrant. Elevation above GL, plan below GL, and here the reverse for third angle. Elevation below GL and plan above GL, because when you rotate through 90 degree to open up this space, naturally this space also opens up and it moves there toward the upper side. Okay. Now, along with this discussion, please supplement it with some book.
Yes, sir. I have the book by Enrich, sir. Can I follow this?
So you have already that thing, and go through as many pages as possible for you, and you approach to the projection of straight lines.
And sir, I have one more question, sir. Sir, if I draw, sir, multiple drawing in one A5, A3 or A2 paper, it will be okay?
Of course.
Okay, sir.
For one problem, when you use in industry, a huge drawing you have to accommodate on one sheet, and the industrial paper size, as you know, this is normally A0 size in the form of some single sheet, or it may be in the form of some roll. Okay. Now, have you heard the discipline naval architecture?
Sir, is it for submarines or these things?
Any marine structure, suppose submarine or,
yes,
or anything, any ship. So for that thing, it's too long a structure, and to show that you need compared to the width of the paper, its length must be too large. So that's why we require some roll of paper, and we use it in that plotter. In plotter, paper rolls are fed, and from that roll feed paper, you will find a long drawing. And it is not like a fixed length width. It's like a paper roll. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any more question? But I am telling you, one commonly said proverb about this subject is that, and I believe it personally, from my core of my heart, that is, close your eyes to see it better. हंसना मत.
Yes, sir. I get it, sir.
Yes, sir.
I get it, sir. I get it, sir.
बंद करके देखना पड़ेगा.
True, sir.
Now, आगे की जानकारी आज के लिए थोड़ा टफ है, so that's why I will not proceed further. I will just give your answer if there is anything.
सर इसे ही हजम करने में थोड़ा वक्त लगेगा सर.
पता है मुझे, ये हजम करने में कुछ लोगों को हफ्ता लग जाता है, but self study is the only remedy. It is the only medicine. ये बीमारी का दूसरा कोई मेडिसिन है नहीं. मेरे दिमाग से आपका दिमाग तक पहुंचाने के लिए कोई आसान रास्ता नहीं है.
And sir, we have to do, sir, all 17 problem from plate 2.
बेटा वही एग्जांपल ऑफ HC वर्मा वाला.
And no, sir, I can't draw those pictures, sir, those drawings. I don't know the methods.
तू बंगाली है?
Yes, sir.
तो बंगाली में बोलते हैं दुष्टू छेले रही लोखी.
Yes, sir. So they are help.
The good habit, whatever you have learned from your parents, your teachers, बेटा solution मत देखना. Now we advise you To do that दोस्तों में बेटा solution पहले देख ले. So if you take that book of N.D. Watt or Venugopal, you go through the solutions, not only for this subject, for any subject. You have that liberty. You go through many number of solutions, then that confidence will be there in your mind. That ऐसा problem को कैसे handle करना है. So I don't need your honesty. I need your honesty only in examination hall. That's all.
স্যার এই রেকর্ডিংটা ভালো করে রেখে দেবেন, আবার সন্ধ্যা পর্যন্ত তো ভুলে যাবো এত কিছু।
বইতে সব পাবি, everything is there. बेटा मैंने ये सब्जेक्ट तो डेवलप नहीं किया ना, मेरे टीचर लोगों ने पढ़ाया था, वो लोग भी कभी स्टूडेंट थे, उनका दादा परदादा ने उनको सिखाया था. तो by generation it is coming and it will go forward in this way, just like our civilization. So books are the greatest teachers. There cannot be any substitute for any book. Of course, from my so many years of practice of this subject, I can understand your question sometime quite early. That's all. And your answer I can give you in such a way that it moves to your grammar very nicely. And one day you will also be like me, even better. And I'll be proud if one day I find one of my students joining as NIT Durgapur faculty and I am learning something new from you. बेटा हमारे जमाने में क्या, ये जब तक पैंडेमिक नहीं आया था, ये ऑनलाइन क्लास तो मैंने कभी लिया नहीं, ये हर रोज मुझे सीखना पड़ता है.
यस सर, हमें भी सीखना पड़ता
স্যার
है.
আপনার কোনো স্টুডেন্ট ওখানে ফ্যাকাল্টি?
NIT Durgapur. So many. I joined here in the month of September of 1984. So कितना हुआ? 37 years. And when 1984, one standard 12 pass student comes, his or her age is 18. So 18 plus 37 years, it is 55 years. So naturally, they are old teachers now, almost on the verge of retirement. My first batch of students you will find in mechanical engineering department, Dr. S.C. Rana, Subhash Chandra Rana. He is a very good teacher. And sometimes I get some lesson from him also. Okay.
अच्छा.
ये पढ़ाई में कोई अपने जो घर में छोटा बच्चा है ना, आप मोबाइल का इस्तेमाल उन लोगों से आप ज्यादा अच्छे तरीके से सीख सकते हो. जितना छोटा बच्चा होगा उतना जल्दी वो सीख जाते हैं.
हाँ सर, वो तो अब होता है.
वो आप लोगों को पढ़ा के रहेगा. Anyway,